In HBO's The Wire, we follow the drug gangs of West Baltimore looking to claim the streets from each other and simultaneously the cops out to stop them and put them behind bars. This is my first analysis video of The Wire, and if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know I take deep dives into the likes of The Sopranos, The Godfather, Goodfellas, and other crime films and TV shows. You can expect more videos on The Wire in the coming future, so if you like what you see, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. The king of the streets of West Baltimore is Avon Barksdale, kingpin of the Barksdale organization. After a stint in prison that begins at the end of Season 1, Avon is released in Season 3 and resumes the running of his crew, although by this point, Avon's second-in-command, Stringer Bell, has formed the Co-op, an alliance between the Barksdale crew and rival drug organizations. As this enterprise, and this kind of philosophy in general, is something Avon despises, tensions manifest between old-school Avon and New World Stringer, leading the two to double-cross each other, ending with Avon back in prison and Stringer in the morgue. Towards the end of Season 3, before he is rearrested, Avon and his crew prepare to go to war with the young, up-and-coming new gangster on the block, Marlo Stansfield, a cold, distant force of nature who lacks the principles and ethics of the likes of OGs such as Proposition Joe. Given the experience, manpower and firepower of Avon, the guy had grenades in his warehouse, there's little to suggest that Avon couldn't have taken Marlo out, but as he's arrested, Marlo takes full advantage of the power vacuum on the streets to take over and become the new drug kingpin of West Baltimore, even turning up to Avon's sentencing as a kind of piss-take send-off. Now, that's pretty much the last we see of Avon. He's now out of the game. Only in episode 2 of the final season of The Wire, after Marlo has established himself as a true powerhouse of the game, there is a surprise cameo from Avon, after Marlo makes a visit to prison to see Sergei, an enforcer to the mysterious Greeks, the supplier of Prop Joe's drugs, with Marlo wanting to get direct access to the Greeks and their supplies. He puts cash into Sergei's account, arranges a prison visit, and is surprised to see Avon greet him instead, with Marlo having to get through Avon to get to Sergei to get to the Greeks, with Sergei having approached Avon asking him if he knows who Marlo is. Now a question arises here. Avon and Marlo were enemies on the streets. They tried to kill each other, take over each other's turf and product. Marlo currently has pretty much eradicated the Barksdale crew. So why on earth does Avon choose to help Marlo get to the Greeks? Marlo is partly the reason why Avon is sitting in prison. Shouldn't he hate his guts? Why help him? Well, let's explore this in today's video. Explore the reasons why Avon might have assisted his rival. Before we begin, some interesting points to mention. This meeting is essentially the original gangster meeting with the new kingpin, the first time Avon and Marlo come face to face in a capacity to speak to each other directly. The old school versus the next generation, something symbolized by the duo's behavior. Avon is vicious and ruthless, but he has a code, choosing to usually harm people who are in the game. He's also active in the community, but wants his name not to be remembered. Think back to when he refuses to have his photo on Cutty's gym. And even though he runs the Barksdales, the cops don't even know who he is in Season 1. Marlo, on the other hand, is all about the street rep and his name. The two men are flip sides of the same coin. Both men want to be the king, but the difference is Marlo will defy commitment, go above and beyond established rules and codes of the streets to get to the top. It's almost like Don Vito Corleone coming face to face with Don Michael Corleone. Though he prides himself on being the man at the top, being told to sit in booth number 2 signifies that though he wears the crown, Marlo still has a lot to learn before becoming number 1, as the meeting with Avon shows him, with this being the first time someone talks down to Marlo, with Avon saying things like, "Let me help you find your tongue," and calling him young'un. No one talks to Marlo like that. Avon even works out Marlo's entire plan with taking out Prop Joe. For Marlo, I feel that though this is his enemy, it's a case of meeting one of your heroes. He even looks starstruck, is lost for word at times, and when he first sees Avon and everyone else walks out, he looks around as if he's weary, scared even, that he's walked into a hit. It's a great scene seeing these two face off against each other, the two kings, much like in the chess game which is so often alluded to in the series, in a stalemate, unable to kill each other in the circumstances they are in. Another interesting point to mention is that Avon asks for 100k in order to allow access to Sergei, which is the same amount Prop Joe took of him in the sports game in Season 1. as if this is Avon getting his own back against Joe, settling the score. More on that later. So anyway, why does Avon help his enemy Marlo? Well, one reason could very well be just what Avon says. Fuck all them East Side bitches. Though Marlo and Avon faced off against each other, they are both West Side. Avon's hatred of East Side is far greater than his hatred of Marlo. This is something established all the way back in Season 1. East Side Proposition Joe is Avon's true rival, and upon his return, Avon was completely against the Stringer and Prop Joe collaboration idea. If anything, Marlo is Avon's successor, and he'll be happy that a West Baltimore man is picking up the slack after his incarceration. Avon says things like, West Side needs to stick together. I say let bygones be bygones, and I got nothing but love in my heart for West Side. This scene can be seen as a passing of the torch, an embodiment of street soldier to street soldier respect, and it works both ways. Marlo talks to Avon nothing like the way he talks to Stringer. Like De Niro and Pacino in the famous coffee shop scene in Heat, these two men understand each other on a deeper level. Avon also acknowledges that he's lost, he's in prison, and Marlo is out on the street swallowing up territories. Why be bitter about it? The game is the game, life goes on. Always, as Avon says, a kind of acknowledgement that while Avon might be out of the game itself always goes on, the characters come and go. There's a sportsmanship to this scene, a bit like the scene between Carcetti and Royce after Carcetti becomes mayor. After a vicious election campaign, Royce is humble in defeat and treats Carcetti well in this scene after the election. The game is the game. But I think this also highlights a difference between Avon and Marlo, that Marlo, in his ambition and tunnel vision on the way to the top, doesn't quite get the game fully, and if he was in Avon's position, he would not be giving out information helping his rival. Another reason could be that this just isn't the same Avon we saw who was in prison in Season 2. Back then, he had Stringer running things in his absence, guys like Slim Charles on the streets, soldiers like Bodie. Stringer and Bodie are now dead. Charles is with Prop Joe now. Who's to say that Avon even has any power anymore on the streets? The show never makes it really clear one way or another. He might even have had more years added to his sentence after the events of Season 3, meaning he knows he will spend decades in prison. The game will be past him when he gets out, so why not pass the torch now? Of course, there is also the money. Avon will still be hustling on the inside, but he won't be making big bucks like he was on the streets. Avon's sister even mentioned previously that money is drying up, though this probably has more to do with her distancing herself from Avon than Avon losing a lot of revenue streams and income opportunities dwindling. Helping Marlo might not be the right thing to do, but 100k is a lot of money, and it's possible that Marlo will find his way through to the Greeks without Avon's help anyway. As D'Angelo Barksdale once said, it ain't about right, it's about money. Avon is a street businessman first and foremost. He won't let petty egos get in the way of making money. So he comes up with a price and sugarcoats it with nonsense about West Side versus East Side just to save face and make it look like he's doing Marlo a favour. Speaking of ego, this could also be a factor in the sense that Avon gets pleasure in the fact that even when he is in jail, Marlo still needs to go through him to get what he wants, has to use his name, in spite of supposedly being the new king. The king stays the king, as D'Angelo once said. This scene is also Avon's only opportunity to flex on Marlo, calling himself an authority figure, going back to what I said about someone talking down to Marlo for the first time. Even though Avon had to give up the crown, he is still the gatekeeper that Marlo needs to go through. Avon makes a point of saying that Sergei didn't even know who Marlo was, that Sergei went to Avon. Avon asserts his power in other ways too, like when Marlo says 100 large, as if to negotiate the cost, but Avon moves the conversation along to small talk, signifying the price is not up for debate, the case is closed. Beautifully finessed. Some lessons here that the blunt Marlo could learn, especially in his dealings with the co-op. There's also another possibility I want to propose, and that would involve Avon playing the long game and actually quickening Marlo's path to self-destruction rather than helping him. You see, Avon knows about the detail. He knows about the cops that are on the drug dealers. He obviously doesn't know that their funding has been slashed, but he knows how the game is played. He also knows that for all his achievements, Marlo is inexperienced. He won't last on the streets. He knows that Marlo is planning on killing Prop Joe and eventually taking over. But if and when he does mess it up, providing Avon is only serving out his remaining sentence before he went back into prison, he can get out and immediately pick up the pieces from Marlo, who by now will be dead or in prison. The co-op and the connect with the Greeks is even run through Avon's former crew member Slim Charles, as the montage at the end of season 5 shows us. And as he always seemed like a loyal dude, and he proclaims himself that he isn't cut out for the whole CEO role, we can assume that he will hand the reins back to Avon, so that the original king retakes his throne and the game begins again. It all works out, and Avon definitely has the streetwise intelligence to have this kind of foresight. Having Marlo take out Prop Joe and then inevitably get taken out himself kills two birds with one stone for Avon, both Joe and Marlo, and it is true that a huge amount of luck was involved in Marlo's rise to power, like Stringer ratting out Avon, the power vacuum, and the lack of police funding to investigate the vacant killings. Even the way Avon acts in the second scene between him and Marlo is almost childlike. He's always been this way in some regard, but the way he makes the W sign, the way he pounds his chest, it's so over the top, almost like he's taking the piss out of Marlo, who is too dumb with his tunnel vision to pick up on the fact that he's being played. So why do you think Avon helped Marlo in the prison scene? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe for more Wire content, and thanks for watching.